Thank you, Warren and Maureen, all who have led us in worship today, the choir, all the instrumentalists. 8:30 and 11, I am grateful. I am so glad to be back. I have missed you. Where have you been? I cannot tell you how grateful I am for your patience and understanding. When I talked to the transition team last spring and we decided to continue this relationship into the year, I said, well, I've already got plans for the summer. And let me tell you the plans I have with my family. And they were understanding and gracious. And they said, you go enjoy your time with your family and come back. And that's exactly what we have done. Jackie and I have talked so much about this in recent days. We could not have scripted a better summer. It is one of those that we will remember the rest of our lives. We have had such good time with all of our children and grandchildren. We have traveled together. We have done so many wonderful things together, made a lot of memories, and enjoyed every smile and mile. It began in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We went with some of our children to Jackson Hole. We went out west, the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone. I had never been there, and so we all explored. Some had, I had not. We explored that area, and it was just ooh-ah everywhere we looked. Many of you have been there. Everywhere you look, it is a postcard. It's beautiful, especially the Grand Tetons. Snow on top of the Tetons. 4th of July, I was making and throwing snowballs. I said, this has never happened before. I think if Jackson Hole has 1 week of perfect weather, we got it. It was 45 every night, 75 every day, and no humidity. Why I came back, I do not know. We had a fire every night. We roasted marshmallows and s'mores and things like that. And then we enjoyed the daytime and all the scenery. We loved to hike and be outside. It was beautiful. Then went to Florida. It was not 45 and 75 in Florida. We love to go to St. Augustine, and we've been going down there for about 10 years now. And our children came different weeks. I've never been able to do this before because being the pastor of a church, I never wanted to be gone more than about 2 weeks during the summer. And so I've never been able to do what we did this year, and how I loved it. Each of our children came with their families a different week. And so we spent quality time with them. All of them were healthy. Everybody was well. Everybody was happy, at least for 1 week. And we just had a marvelous time. So we made a lot of memories, and I am grateful for all of those. I trust you have had a good summer. I've never had a summer like this. It's been wonderful, as I said, but I trust wherever you went, or even if you just had a staycation, that you have enjoyed time with your family and your friends. But it is good to be back. I truly have missed you. And I have watched on the computer streaming, and even caught up some when I could not do that. And you have been served well by those who have stood in this pulpit. And I am grateful for all of them too. Socrates, teach me. I want to learn. Socrates, teach me. I want to learn. Those were the hopeful words of a student who wanted Socrates to take him under wing. Socrates lived, as you know, about 500 years before the time of Christ. His adult life was spent in Athens. He was a philosopher. He was an ethicist as well. We know him because of the writings of Plato and other students of his. We know that he was one of the smartest men that ever lived, and people have sought his wisdom. And this young man came to him one day and said, Socrates, teach me, I want to learn. I think that young man had a high level of confidence. He thought Socrates would just take him under wing and be glad to have him as a student. I suspect he was shocked at the response of Socrates. Socrates said nothing verbally. There was no verbal response to that request. Instead, he just motioned to the young man for him to follow, which he did. Socrates took him down to the edge of the sea. When they got to the edge of the sea, Socrates took his arm, and they continued to walk into the water. Got all the way up beyond the chest, right up to the neck. Then Socrates took his hands and put his hands on the head of this young man and pressed him under the water. It seemed like an eternity he was under there. He began squirming, moving his arms, his legs, trying to break free from the grasp that Socrates had on him, but he was unable to do it. Finally, after a few more seconds, Socrates released his grip. When he did, that young man just came bouncing out of the water as you would expect, gasping for breath. Again, Socrates said nothing. He helped him to the shore. And when they reached the shore, Socrates merely said to him, "When you want to learn as badly as you wanted a breath of air under that water, come see me." When you want to learn as badly as you wanted a breath of air under that water, then you come and see me. Psalm 119, we're not even sure who wrote it. The author is unknown. It is the longest chapter in the Bible. There are 176 verses. I would never cover all of them today because that would take 4 or 5 hours, and it would bump us right up to the picnic time this afternoon. So I'll cut it in half. I love the fact that you get humor because you're hoping I'm being humorous. When you read Psalm 119 in its entirety, there's one thing you do know for sure, and that is the author of this psalm passed Socrates' test. He wanted, or she wanted, to understand the ways of God, wanted to know God, and wanted to know what was important to God as much as he wanted his next breath. Have you ever been that serious and intense about learning? I suspect everyone here has. I know that you are an inquisitive group of people. I know that you love to learn. You love to study here at church, in school, and even other places. I know you have cell groups and Bible studies. I know the ladies just came back from Indianapolis, where they went to a conference and studied and learned so much. And so I know I'm preaching to people who love to learn. I also know that all of us as children, there were times when maybe there was a subject you were introduced to that captured your attention and led you on your own to the library or more recently to the internet. When you entered college, school has begun for many. Elementary, middle school, high school will begin, I know, in another week or two for everybody. College classes are getting ready to resume. Perhaps you went to college, you went to a vocational school, but remember when you went to school on your own and you walked into those classrooms, you wanted to learn everything you could to help you have a bright and prosperous future. Do you recall your first job? Maybe you're working your first job right now. Perhaps like me, you have had several jobs, and do you recall going for the first time to go to work full time? And you were so eager to learn everything you could so that you would be successful. Oh, yes. I know I'm looking at people today who value learning. And there have been times in your life when you've been intense and you've been serious and focused and determined and you wanted to learn. You were hungry to learn. But my question to you this morning is this. Have you ever been this curious and inquisitive about the ways of God? Have you ever hungered and thirsted after righteousness? As I said earlier, it appears the psalmist did. Yes, he passed Socrates' test. There is no doubt in my mind that he met all the demands of interest and intensity that Socrates demanded of his students. How do I know? How do I know the psalmist was this intense and this interested in the ways of God? Well, count the imperatives in our text. Count the imperatives, which I think are the most intriguing and enlightening parts of our particular text today. Now, you know what imperatives are. Imperatives are commands. Imperatives are action words, usually at the beginning of a sentence. Don't you recall when you were a child, and we certainly have children here, even in this service, but don't you recall when you were small, you were a child, and occasionally one of your parents would call your name and they would put a little more volume and intensity into it? Bob. What usually came after your name? It was a command. Stop what you are doing. Come now. Quit. Well, that's what an imperative is. It is a command, or in the Psalms today, these imperatives are pleas on the part of the psalmist for God to help him understand the ways of God. There's about a dozen, depending on which translation you look at. In this short passage, there are anywhere from 10 to 12 imperatives, which tell us how serious the psalmist is about knowing God, knowing the ways of God, and wanting to do what God would have him to do. Let me go back and read some of them for you. Do good to your servant, and I will live. I will obey your word. Open my eyes that I may see wonderful things in your law. Every time you sit down to study Scripture, maybe it's a devotion, and you're going to open your Bible and read a passage of Scripture. Maybe you're going to have a time of study with other people, and you're all going to open the Bible and you're going to study it. Begin with verse 18. Psalm 119, verse 18. Open my eyes, Lord. Open my eyes that I may see the wonderful things in your law. I'm a stranger on earth. Do not hide your commands from me. My soul is consumed with longing for your laws at all times. Serious, intense, focused, my soul is consumed with longing for your laws at all times, in every circumstance of life, at every twist and turn of life. I want to know what you would have me to do. Teach me, Lord. Teach me personally. Teach me, Lord, to follow your decrees, and then I will keep them to the end. The end of what? To the end of my life. I will be faithful. I will persevere. When they are tough, when they are difficult, and maybe it is not what I want to hear, I will still be faithful and do what you're asking me to do. Teach me, Lord, to follow your decrees. Then I will keep them to the end of my life. Give me understanding. Another imperative, give me understanding, and I will keep your law and obey it with all my heart. Give me understanding. Understanding is the practical side of wisdom. Understanding gives us the ability to know how to do what God is asking us to do. It is that practical side of wisdom. Give me understanding, and I will keep your law and obey it with all my heart. This will be my highest priority, he says. I will not serve two masters. I'll not give a portion of my heart to you and then to other pursuits. I will give you all my heart, all times, all places, under all circumstances. I will seek your will, your wisdom, your understanding, and follow to the best of my ability. Direct me in the paths of your commands, for there I find delight, not disappointment, but delight. I find joy, I find peace. You must understand, peace is not the absence of anything. There'll be maybe a time when I can talk a little bit more about peace. Peace is not the absence, it's not the absence of turmoil or tension or stress or problems or difficulties. We'll have those as long as we are alive. Peace is not the absence of anything. It is the presence of someone who is always by our side, helping us whatever it is we face. And he says, direct me in the path of your commands, for there I find peace and joy and delight. Turn my heart toward your statutes and not toward selfish gain. Help me to do what is best for everybody, not just me, but those around me. It's not just about me, Lord. It's about my neighbors. It's about my family. It's about my friends. It's even about my enemies. So turn my heart toward your statutes and not toward selfish gain. Turn my eyes away from worthless things. Preserve my life according to your word. Turn my eyes away from worthless, insignificant, trivial things. Notice what he does not say. He didn't say, take these things away from me, these insignificant or unnecessary or worthless things. He didn't say, take them away, they'll always be here. He said, turn my eyes away from them to you, to what is important, what is permanent, what is lasting. In other words, give me the discipline I need to say no to things that are harmful or even unnecessary, and yes to things that are good. I cannot remember the exact location the first time I came across a store. I think it was a rural area, but I came across a store and I love the name of the store. Trash, Trinkets, and Treasures. At least they were honest. Trash, trinkets, and treasures, they're probably scattered throughout the country in various places. But isn't that what life is? Life is filled with trash, with trinkets, and then treasures. Oh, there are times when we might enjoy the trinkets and even think we need them. And yes, I guess we do. But what the psalmist said is, I want to find the treasures. What's most important in life, what will last throughout eternity, what will give my life meaning and purpose, that's what I want. And I will only discover those treasures by delving into your word and seeking your heart and your mind and your will. How I long for your precepts, he says. How I long to know what is important to you. Preserve my life in your righteousness. Is there any doubt? I wanted to read through that and just talk for a moment about it, because there is no doubt in my mind, and I'm sure yours. Is there any doubt about how serious the psalmist was about learning what was important to God? His words indicate a high level of curiosity and intensity. He pleads with God to open his eyes, his heart, his mind, and then to lead him the direction that he needs to go. I'd never studied this passage until last week. And one of the questions that came to mind, because I love asking questions about texts. And as I was studying this and came across all these imperatives that as I said, I found so intriguing and enlightening, and just was the key to unlocking what this passage is all about, I had to ask myself, well, why was he so serious about getting closer to God at this point in his life? What's going on? And we really don't have an answer. We don't know who the author is. Therefore, we don't even know how old the author is. And we don't know exactly what's going on in his life. Had to use my imagination. Maybe he was a young man who was coming of age. He was growing and maturing and discovering to his dismay, life is not all about me. When we lose our innocence and discover life is not all about us, it's pretty tough, isn't it? Our 3 children came different weeks to Florida, St. Augustine, that area. But they came different weeks, and each of them has 2 children, so their families came, 6 grandchildren in all, but they came different weeks. We had that quality time with all of them. There was some overlapping of a day or two. It's about all we could stand. But the last to come was Josh. Josh is my youngest child, lives in Houston, Texas, with his family, Tracy and William and Collier. My grandchildren are between the ages of 2 and 16. And so we had a 13 and 16-year-old the first week, and then we had 2 11-year-olds, and then we had Josh and Tracy and their 2 little boys, 2 and 4. I don't know if you spent much time with it. They were there 9 days, by the way. It was about 3 months altogether. I don't know if you've been around a 2 and a 4-year-old. Some of you have a 2 and a 4-year-old. They're precious. I love them to pieces most of the time. Oh my goodness, these 2 little boys, how I wish I could see them every day. We don't get to see them that often. We live in Houston. But they were up at 6:30 every morning. But they went to bed between 7:30 and 8 every night. At least I shut the door. But boy, if they're up, they're moving and they're talking. And you're moving and you're talking. Thank goodness they took a nap in the afternoon. But you know, I had not been around a 2-year-old in a while and a 4-year-old. Everything is about them. I mean, it's all about them. Everything is about them. And I told Jackie once, I said, you know, this is so unfair. We need to do something about this, because the first 2 to 3 years of a child's life, you make everything about them. You really do. We just spoil them rotten. At least grandparents do. It's our job. We go to school for that. And then all of a sudden they get up one day and we look at them and we say, no. No, it's not all about you, and you're going to have to learn that you live in this house or with other people, and that it's not all about you, and you don't get your way all the time. Boy, how does that go over? Maybe he's coming of age. And to his dismay, he's realizing life's not all about me. Lord, help me to understand what's important, what life really is all about. Perhaps he's accepted a challenge, the psalmist. Maybe he's taken on new responsibilities and he's realized that many people were depending upon him to rise to the occasion, and he felt overwhelmed by this new challenge, this new task, this new job, all these people dependent upon him. Lord, this is bigger than I am. I must have your help. He might have been reeling from some bad decisions he made, and he saw how disappointed other people were in him, his parents, maybe his siblings, perhaps his neighbors, his friends, his mentors. And he realizes, I don't have all the answers. He could have just been tired of investing his life in things that really did not meet and satisfy his deepest needs, the need for meaning and purpose and guidance and direction and peace and security and confidence and courage and strength, and on I could go. The things he was pursuing, trash, trinkets, not treasures, and he was feeling empty. It was almost as if he was sewing with threadless needles. It just made no sense, and there was nothing left in his trail. And he was tired of investing his life in things that just didn't satisfy his deepest needs. Maybe the faith he borrowed from his parents and peers was not working for him. There will come a time, I hope, when I can just share with you about my theory. I think we all begin life with a borrowed faith. We borrow it from our parents, our grandparents, our pastors, our Sunday school teachers, our friends. But there comes a point in time in which the faith we've borrowed from others doesn't work for us. This is why Paul said, work out your own salvation. And so we have to build a faith based upon our own study and struggles and experiences and challenges and failures. And maybe that's where he is at this time in his life. Whatever the reason, the psalmist was now ready to discover and to adopt the heart, the mind, the hopes, the dreams, and the ways of God. He was serious. He was focused. He was determined. He was dedicated. He was committed. He was ready. He wanted this as badly as he wanted his next breath of air. So what did he do? Well, there were two things that he asked God to do that caught my attention, and both of them are connected to his eyes. Open my eyes that I might see the things I'm missing. Show me my blind spots. Show me what I don't see. Show me what I don't know. Help me to understand that where I've been going, what I've been pursuing, what I've been doing, those are not the most important things in life. And so he asked the great physician to open his eyes and show him his blind spots. But then he also asked God to help him turn his attention away from the trash and the trinkets to the treasures. Turn my eyes away from worthless things. I think the psalmist came to a point in life when he realized he had put the wrong price tags on the things of life around him. And he needed God's help to recognize this and do something about it. Whatever was missing or whatever was out of sorts in his life, he was going to need God's help to correct it. Open my eyes, turn my eyes away from worthless things. I think this is true for all of us. We need God's help. Have you ever been as serious about your faith as the psalmist was about his? Is it time for you to follow the psalmist's example? as he sought to discover what was important to God and what was best for him. I wonder what difference it would make in your life if you followed the psalmist's example. I wonder what difference it would make in the lives of everyone around you if you adopted God's heart, God's mind, God's values, God's priorities, God's hopes, God's dreams, and God's ways. There is a way to find out the difference it would make if you would do what the psalmist does. There is a way for you to find out. It involves strong imperatives and a deep breath of fresh air. Let's bow for a word of prayer. It's back to school time, Lord. Summer's been wonderful and vacations have been good. A break from the routine we all needed. But now it's time to get serious again about living and learning. This is true not just in our secular lives, but our spiritual lives. May we be as hungry and thirsty for righteousness as the psalmist. And may we be as serious about discovering what's important to you and best for us as we want our next breath of air. But we pray in the name of Christ.